all again in grade 11 economics, right? In the previous video session, we have talked about what are the books that is meant for grade 11. So we have statistics for economics, which should be a part A, and microeconomics, sorry, introductory microeconomics is part B. So we're going to start with statistics for economics. In the previous session, we have discussed about the first chapter, which is the introduction. Right, what is the introduction? What did we deal in it? We studied what is economics. So it is a study of man and the society, people and the society. About what? It is talking about the allocating of the resources to produce various quantities. And these resources, what are the important points about the resources? It has alternative uses. One resource can be used for many uses. So you have to find the best use of the product to produce various commodities for the consumption and distribution among the various groups in the society. Right. So then we spoke about what is statistics in the numerical terms. We'll be using the facts to refer, analyzing all those things. It has like classic collection of data. Then we organize it. Then we have to analyze it, interpret it, and present it. So we spoke about economic facts and economic data. Then we discussed about statistical tools like mean, variance, standard deviation and all those stuff. Then we discussed how statistics is going to help economics. Why do we need statistics in economics? We discussed. Because to compare and contrast, for analyzing we need it. We need a certain group of data for analyzing and coming up to a reform, which is called as the policy. Maybe it can be poverty or it can be unemployment issue, whatever is the economic problem, we will be having the statistics to understand the problem and to figure out a proper solution. That is why we spoke about statistics in economics. One good example for statistics in economics is that right now we have a full page list of which city or which state is having how many positive cases, how many people were tested, how many of them were positive. So what is the degree of growth or decline in the spreading of disease, and all those things are called as statistics even. Alright, based on that only the government decides whether to continue with the lockdown or whether we can announce it as green zone, orange zone. How are they analyzing it? Just by looking at it? No, they have a proper data. This data is useful. Okay, in every field, and statistics is useful in many fields, management, government decisions, and accountancy, everywhere we need this statistics. Right, so what are we going to do now? We are going into the second chapter, which is called the collection of data. Okay, what is the second chapter? It is the collection of data. Okay, we are going to collect the information from data. That is called as collection of data. Why do we need it? What is the purpose of collecting data? Is to show evidence for reaching a sound and clear solution to a problem. Why do we need to collect data? To reach to a sound and clear solution to a problem. That is why we need to collect data which is related to that. So in this topic, what are we going to do in this chapter? We are going to talk about the purpose of data collection, methods of data collection, what are the sources of data collection, and then we are going to discuss about the techniques of sampling. Then finally we are going to talk about the important sources of secondary data. Right. So in economics we often come across various terms related to statistics. Like what? Like when we talk about GDP, it is given in statistics. Every year's GDP, what is the change? We are getting it known in terms of statistics. Then the import value. Let it be fuel or let it be some other human resources. Everything is in the point of statistics, that is in numerical terms, right? So this helps us for what? When it is given in numerical terms, we have the techniques, statistical tools to study about it, to analyze it and to interpret and present the data in a readable form, which is easy for us to understand the problem and to arrive at a solution, to arrive at a clear solution. Now what is it? There is a thing called variable. Okay, there is a thing called variable. It's a term that you have understood or you have learned in your previous standards even. Variable means it varies, it changes. The values differ. That is, the GDP of last year will not be the same like this year. Okay, it varies. So it is called as varying thing. So it is called as a variable. Now here we have a tabular column. We will just have a tabular column. With the help of the tabular column, we will just explain it in further. Okay, it is a production of food grain in India. That is the tabular column you have. Going to go with the same one. Production of food grain in India. Okay. So we have two things here, two different things. One is called the X variable and one more is called the Y variable. Why do we call it a variable? Because these change, these vary, the values vary, like 1970 to 71, and it continues like every 5 years once. 1976 to 81. Then 1986, 1990. Okay, it is given in different years. 1990, 91, 97, 98. Okay, and then what? 2001, 2. Then 2005 and 6. And finally you have what? 15, 16. Then 2016, 17. What is in this side? It is given the production of food grain in million tons. It is given in million tons, like 108, 132. Okay, then we have 176, 194, then 212, 252, 274. These are given in million tons. What is it? How will you understand it? In 1970-71, 108 million tons of food grain were produced in India. Okay, in 1978 to 79, in the financial year, 132 million tons of food grains were produced in India. When you write it, how will you write it? When you are writing it, you will write in the financial year 1997-98. Okay, how many tons, how many million tons? 194 million tons of food grains were produced in India. Right, like this you have to write for each and every year. If you write like this, is it possible for you to analyze it? No, it's very difficult. But when you have it in a tabular column, when you have it in a diagrammatic representation or a tabular column representation, then you need to have this. This is very easy for an economist to assess. So in 1970-71 it was 108. Then next year it has increased. Okay, it has increased in the forthcoming years. 1 year if it goes wrong, they will analyze why it went wrong, what went wrong, and they will find it out. Out of this X and Y are there, no? These are called variables. X mentions the years, Y mentions the million tons, and their value keeps on changing. Since these are varying, it is called as variables. Okay? Variables are usually marked by X, Y, Z, the terms. Variable X, variable Y, variable Z we say. And the value of these variables, how do you call it? We call them as data. How do you call them? You call them as data. Right children, this is how you have got the data. In theoretical terms, in sentences if they give also, when you represent it in the proper order in a tabular form, it is very easy for us to analyze it, for understanding it and for analyzing it. That is why we say that data is a tool. Okay, what is it? We say that data is a tool. Data is a tool for what? It helps in understanding problems by providing information. Data, what does data do? It is a tool. Data is a tool for what? For understanding the problems. For understanding problems. How do you understand problems? Because data gives you information. Right, it gives information. Alright, it gives information to you. That's why we say that data is a tool. And what does it do? It helps you in understanding the problems by giving you information regarding the particular problem. That is why we say that data is very, very essential. There are various types of data, methods and instruments for data collection, which we are going to study here on. Okay, first what are we going to discuss? We are going to discuss about the sources of data. From where you can collect data. Okay, from where you can collect data. Sources of data means what? From where you are going to collect the data. There are two kinds of data or two kinds of sources. One is called the primary data, another one is called the secondary data. Based on the source you are saying that it is primary data or secondary data. Okay? So the researcher can obtain data in two ways from two sources. One is called primary data, another one is called as secondary data. Now primary data collected directly from the source, collected directly from the people. So for example, what I did, I spoke with each and every one of you who want to know whether you are able to understand, whether you are able to, whether you are writing your test and everything. I spoke directly from you. That is primary data. When the researcher speaks directly with the person, the respondent, and gets the information directly to which I am going to analyze, is called primary data. Right, I am getting the data right from you and I am then counting, okay, out of 25 people, these many people have attended the test and these many did not attend the test. So I am analyzing it, right? That is called as a primary data. That is, I have collected and processed directly from you. Okay, it is a first-hand information. But when I pass the same information to higher authorities, it becomes secondary data. Okay? So for example of here, me collecting data from my students for analyzing is called primary data. But when I proceeded to my higher authorities, what do? Students, you are not giving the data. I am giving the data on behalf of you. There it becomes secondary data. I already have counted that 18 out of 25 people have written the test. This is my account. So this is my primary data. When I pass it on to secondary data, that is the next person, they already have it. They are not talking to all 25 of you and getting the information, but directly getting one straight information from me that it is already collected and processed. Okay, the secondary data means they are not collecting directly children. This is a direct communication and direct collection. First hand information we say. What do we call? First hand information. Whereas secondary data means what? Already collected and processed. Not only collected and processed. What do we mean by processed information? 25 students I have means I have spoken to each one of you individually. Right, I got to know the issue. So I have made 25 phone calls or 25 people I have spoken. And finally only I come to 18. I add one by one, I count and see how many people have done it. So that is called processing. The addition I am doing, right, that is called as processing here. So what data I give? I give the aggregate data which is called the secondary data. It is already collected and it is processed. So what are the examples here? Primary data when you take surveys. Okay, directly from your school, from your friends, school students, you are getting some information, direct information, it is primary data. Secondary data means based on some other information, government reports, website data, from that you are getting into secondary data. For example, when a newspaper publishes directly of how many COVID cases has happened in that particular city, that is primary data because they have collected it directly. In some cases, have you seen just below the tabular column, they would have written courtesy this particular website. Even in your business studies books even, if you see that example columns about Wipro or HCL, they would have written website HTTPS. It's a secondary data. If you collect it directly, first hand information, it is called as a primary data. Whereas if you are taking it from some other institution, from like you are collecting it and processing it, then you are called as then it is called as secondary data. Alright children, fine. We are going to move into the next part. That is, how can we collect the data? What are the methodologies for you to collect the data? So far we have discussed about the sources of data. Now we are going to discuss the methods of collecting data. How are we going to collect data? In this case, we are going to talk about primary data. Okay? Methods of collecting data. How are you going to collect? You can conduct surveys. You can ask questions about, surveys means what? Asking questions. Have you seen online surveys nowadays? It's possible. When you are watching something or when you are browsing something, it will pop up in between asking like, do you have 2 minutes for a survey? So when you enter the survey, there will be basic questions about any particular product or generally about the services. Even sometimes when you block an advertisement, Google will ask you, why? Why do you want to block it? That is a survey. Alright, so what they are collecting first hand information, asking you questions about a particular product or one particular information from a large group of people. Google does not ask only you. Whoever blocks that, it's going to ask you. Okay, that is called as a survey. Understood? And what else? The purpose of surveys are like what? Why do we conduct surveys? So we are going to study through characteristics, by their characteristics. So it will help in price, quality, usefulness. It will describe characteristics. Describe it will describe characteristics. Describe characteristics means what? Like when you are talking about a price or a quality, after the survey, you will rate down, right? So how much points will you give in linear scale? 5 means very good, 0 means bad, 3 means average. Like that you give some points, right? That is called as the describing characteristics. At the end you will get some information that how many people have told that it was good. So whether it was really good or not, percentage. One nice example for you, I'll tell you. You can even try it for survey. You can create a small survey in Google Forms. Okay, very easy. If you just type Google, you all have MCQ test and all usually conducted in Google Forms only. Usually when we do it, they'll make it a quiz so that you can analyze it. Each question will be there and you will give multiple choice questions. When you give multiple choice questions, it is easy for us to decide. You are giving the options. So finally, there will be a pie chart. Okay, from where you will get the average number of responses, who have told what, the aggregate thing you will get to know. It is easy for you to analyze the characteristics of a product or about the popularity and honesty of loyalty of a candidate. In interviews, it happens, right, like that. So the purpose of the survey is to collect data. And what is it? Survey is to collect data. Why do you need it? For collecting data, and it is a method of gathering information from individuals. What is survey? Method of gathering information from individuals. Alright, what are we going to do? We are going to have an instrument to conduct the survey. On what basis you conduct the survey? Survey means a question should be said. Then only you can be able to analyze it. So you are talking about a particular product. You have introduced a new product in the market. Like you have introduced a new hand sanitizer that only is popular now, right, children? So you have introduced a new hand sanitizer in the market. Means what? You will go and make a survey. So to one person you are asking that, do you like this particular product? Okay, to one person what you are asking, do you like this particular product? What can be changed? What do you like about the product? Do you think it is costly? Like that you ask questions. Now to the second person, if you ask different questions, how will you be able to understand about these four questions first? You will not be able to understand, right? So what do you need? You need the same things, the same questions. Then only it will be easy for you to analyze it. Analyze the data. Then only the tabular column can be presented. Okay? So what you will do? The most common type of instrument used is called a questionnaire or an interview schedule. Okay? What are we going to discuss next? It's a questionnaire. Questionnaire means it will contain lots of questions. You have to question them. A format, a schedule or an instrument with lots of questions regarding a particular product is called as a questionnaire. Alright? Surveys usually use this questionnaire only. Even in Google surveys, if you see, they will ask questionnaires. So what do you like about the product? How much will you reach? Same questions only will repeat. Okay, so what are the important things that you have to remember when you prepare the instrument, when you prepare a questionnaire or when you prepare an interview schedule? What are the important points that you have to remember is what we are going to discuss. So it's called the questionnaire or interview schedule. What are the important points that you have to remember about a questionnaire? It should not be too long. First thing is, should not be too long. You should be ready because when you come back to school, I am going to ask you to prepare a small questionnaire for me. Even I may add it in your worksheet also. Yes, that's a good option. So it should not be too long. Like, I should be interested to answer it. Okay, if you give 100 questions all of a sudden, I will not be interested in answering it. And based on the product, the question should be there. If it is going to be only about a small product, then that number of questions is enough. You don't have to ask me so many questions because people hesitate. You are going to take So people hesitate to spend a lot of time answering questions. Even when I ask questions, you won't like to answer me, right? But I like to answer questions. You can ask me as many questions you want to ask. But generally people are not interested in answering questions. So what do? They hesitate, or they may not give you the interview, or they may not attend the survey, which is not good for you, because you need to know how many people are interested, or how many people you are able to get answers from. Then only a survey will be a successful one. So it should not be too long. It should be as minimum as possible. You should not give so many questions in it. Okay. Second thing, it should be easy to understand. It should not be ambiguous. Ambiguous means what? Difficult to understand. So when you have high polished words to use, you need separate time to explain what it is. So the questionnaire should be easy to understand. Okay. So when I want to know your name, I'll just ask what is your name, instead of asking like how would you introduce yourself? How would you introduce yourself? Means I will introduce that I am me. Right. But when I ask you what is your name, you will directly tell your name. That is the thing, we need to frame our questions in an easy way to understand, and we should avoid ambiguous or difficult words. Alright. Next, it should be arranged in an order such that the person answering should feel comfortable. The comfortability should be brought out. Okay. It should not be any personal questions. Right. People may not be interested to answer questions about their personal things. Like how much do you earn, or how old are you, not if you ask. They might not be interested to answer. So at that time what do? You give linear scale. If you really wanted to know their age, you belong to which age group? 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. Like that you give that. An income group you can have like 0 to 50,000, 50,000 to 1 lakh. Like that you can have the column. Instead of asking them exactly to write their income, they may not be interested to quote it out. So you should make your questionnaire in such a way that it is comfortable for them to answer the question. Next one, the question should go from general to specific. General to specific. I am not going to go with the examples that is given in your book. You can read it, but still I want to give some more examples for all these things, so that it is easy for you to frame your own examples and write your own answers. From general to specific means, first thing what do? First question is this. Okay. Do you wash your hands regularly? First question. Second question you can ask, how frequently do you wash them? This is one method of asking question. One more is there. You have the first question, how many times a day? How frequently only you can replace with how many times. If you think it's ambiguous, it's difficult to understand, then you have to think about the people. If you are going to give this question to your friends, of course they will be able to understand, so you can give. If you want to give it to a commoner, you don't know whether they will be able to understand it or not. Based on that, you should frame your question. So how many times a day do you wash your hands? Second you ask, do you wash your hands regularly? Okay. So you tell me which is general and which is specific. This question is a general question. Do you wash your hands regularly is a general question. number. So yes, that is a specific question. So which questionnaire you have to follow? This one, because it goes from general to specific, whereas in this questionnaire it starts with a specific question and goes to a general question, which is not advisable. It will confuse them. So this questionnaire, that is, it should go from general to specific. It should not be the other order. Alright, along with this you should go with other examples also. Next one, your questionnaire should be precise, to the point, precise and clear. It should be precise and clear. In what terms? It is like what percentage of income, and what example is given in your book. Let us have marketing. Okay. How much percentage of time do you spend in sleeping? This is one question. Second question is, how many hours do you sleep? Now you tell me which is precise and clear. I am telling how much percentage of time do you spend in a day. Sleeping means you have to then sit and calculate. 24 hours means in that 8 hours if I sleep, how much percentage will come? It's not able to understand, right? So if you ask how many hours do you sleep in a day? 8 hours. Simple answer. So this is advisable and this is not. Your questionnaire should be precise and clear. Next one, already we discussed that it should not be ambiguous. It should be easy. Like they should not feel it difficult to answer. Like what? Do you spend, the example that is given is, do you spend a lot of money on books? Buying books means how much do you spend? Like 200 to 300, 300 to 400. Like that you can even frame your own examples in different terms. Like what? How many times or how many days in a month do you help your mother in cooking? Okay? So do you help a mother? Do you help your mother a lot in kitchen? Means it's an ambiguous question. So what I can do? I can make it in a simple question, like how many days in a week or how many minutes in a day you spend in kitchen with your mom. It's easy to answer that. Then it should never be double negatives. That is, it should never start with, should not be ambiguous. Shouldn't be ambiguous. Next one, should not start with negative questions. Don't you, won't you? So should not start with negative. That is, when you ask me something, you have to ask me, ma'am, will you please help me? If you ask me, won't you help me, then I'll have that negative point in my mind, then I'll say I won't. So when you ask it with will you, then it's a good question. So your question should always start with what? Your question should always start with positive. It should never start with negative, like will, won't, haven't, don't, doesn't. Don't start like that. Alright? Then you will be talking about that it should not be a leading question. How in the sense, like it cannot be a leading question? That is, for next question's answer, whatever is going to be a next question, that should not be told out using your first question. It should not be you should not give the answer, you should not Leading question. How will you say that it is a leading question? You only give the answer to it. How? Like, how do you like the flavor of this high quality tea? When you say that, how do you feel about this high quality tea? You already mentioned that it is high quality, so you just say that it is good. It should not be a question like that. It should be, how do you like the flavor of the tea? So when you are talking about your product, it should not be boasting. You should not tell about, like when you are showing your drawing to people, different people, and asking that, isn't it wonderful drawing? No, that is not a right question because it starts with negative. And then what? You should not have a leading question like, how is this wonderful drawing? Or do you like this wonderful drawing? Because you yourself said that it is wonderful. I should not give a leading question like that. Then finally, you should not give alternative answers. Shouldn't give alternative answers. That is, if you have 10,000 rupees, will you buy a TV or a fridge? When you say like that, you have an alternative answer. You should not do like that. If you have 10,000 rupees, what will you buy? It should be a good question. Whether you will buy this or that is not a good question. Right? These are the various things about a questionnaire. And one more thing that we have to know about the questionnaire is, there are two kinds of questions. You would have studied it in English also. One is called the close-ended question. Another one is called the open-ended question. Open-ended question gives you the space for your own answer. Like, what do you want to become in future? It's an open-ended question. It can be anything. You can answer in any way. But would you like to become a doctor after your studies? It's a close-ended question because the options are only yes or no. When the options are limited, it is closed-ended. When there are no options, it's up to given to your personal space, then they are called as open-ended questions. In closed-ended even, you have MCQs, that is like 4 options or 5 options out of that you choose, or only yes or no type of questions. Do you like to be a doctor? Yes or no? Okay, what do you do? What do you like to do after your 12th standard? Then there are some options like, I want to become a doctor, I want to become an engineer, I want to become, like 4 options are given and it is MCQ. But that question is advisable to be given in open-ended because there are various other options also. It is not that you have to, bring it down. When someone asks you what do you want to become after your higher studies, you can say like, I want to become a businessman or a businesswoman, or I want to do my higher studies in management, or you can say that I want to be a commercian. Many things we have. We have lots of opportunities. Right, children? So some other, if you see in Google Forms or in surveys, there's one more column like any others. That is, out of the option in close-ended, out of the options given, if you don't want to choose any, you want to choose another one, and you have to give your own answer, then it is any other. Some questions are given like that, but still it is difficult for you to analyze. Many of them have written any other, means how will you analyze? Okay, that is why it is called as this one. What are the uses of close-ended and open-ended? Close-ended means it is easy for you to analyze because limited options you can figure out within that limit, easy to analyze. Open-ended, it gives enough space for the respondent to answer. It does not constrain them. Here in close-ended, they may be reluctant to answer to something, but they have to answer. Here in open-ended, they have the option to give their own answers. Okay, they don't have any restraints here in open-ended question. Alright children, what are we going to do next? We are going to discuss about the modes of data collection. What are we going to discuss? We are going to discuss about the modes of data collection. We are going to go very quickly for that particular topic because it's a very easy topic. So far what did we discuss? We discussed about collection of data. We discussed the sources of data. Then methods of collection of data. In that we spoke about questionnaire, right? We spoke about questionnaire, what are good questions, what are not good questions. Then next we are going to discuss we are going to discuss modes of data collection. What are the various modes of data collection? How are we going to collect it? So there are three basic ways of data collection. One is called as a personal interview. Then next one is called a mailing questionnaire or survey. Third one is called as a telephone interviews. First one is what? Personal interview. Second one is mailing questionnaire, that is surveys. Questionnaires we saw how they prepare, that will be mailed. Nowadays in email they are sending surveys, so like that. Then finally telephonic interviews. Just going to see the gist of it, what it is. So here what happens, personal interview, usually in job and all they will take personal interviews. So the respondent has the interviewer, right? The interviewer will give the questions directly to the respondent. So the interviewer directly to the respondent. It has its own method, it has its own advantages and disadvantages. Like the respondent, if he has any difficulty, the interviewer can explain the questionnaire and get the answers. And you need a proper interviewer for that. That is one of the demerits. It's a time-consuming process. 20 people are there, means you have to take 20, like separately you have to talk with each one of them. So it is time-consuming. It is expensive because you need a proper interviewer to take or talk to the respondents. Sometimes they may hesitate. The respondents may hesitate to answer them in direct. Okay, direct answers they will be difficult to find it. Like they may feel awkward. They may not feel comfortable with the interviewer. But whereas there are no possibilities of misinterpretation, because directly the interviewer talks to them and get the information, collects the data, so there will not be any miscommunication or misinterpretation. Alright, when you talk about mailing questionnaires, you have to first figure out the questionnaires, then you will be sending it over mail to get it. So here it gives the benefit of, it has the benefit of getting, it is not that expensive, it is not that expensive, and you give the time frame for the respondents. They can take their time, they don't have to get confused. Okay, they can feel free and answer. What is the disadvantage of this method is that they might, they may not answer it. I receive a mail questionnaire. I am not wishing to answer it, so I might not answer it. My wish. So what happens? Again the cost is waste. The cost you have incurred to send the questionnaire is waste. Right. Then finally comes telephonic interview. Here there is a medium used telephone. Here also the interviewer speaks directly to the respondent, whereas the telephone is a medium there. Sometimes it is good because you can explain the concept. There is a disadvantage mentioned in your book which is not nowadays true. That is, everybody may not have telephones now. Everybody has telephone. The problem is they may not pick it up. Or when nowadays when you get the customer care calls, what do we say? We immediately disconnect the call and we just block their numbers. So that is also possible in case of telephonic interviews. Alright children, so all these three methods, they have their own advantages and disadvantages. I am not going to explain in detail after this. You are going to just go through it because it's a very simple topic. The advantages, disadvantages of all these three methods are given. I want you to look into it and then clarify your doubts with me. Alright, because I want to see how you can able to understand it just by reading. After you have collected the data, what do? You have collected the data using these three methods. The next step you do is a pilot survey. Pilot survey means for a sample group, you conduct this interviews. All this data, how you will collect by conducting a pilot survey, that is for a sample group. When you are going to reach the entire country for a particular survey, you will start with a small group of people to know whether your questionnaire or whether your questions are right, whether it is possible for you to go with the right order, whether it is not going to confuse you with the other questions or anything is ambiguous. What are the merits and demerits you can study. Based on that, you can change your questionnaire and reach the big group. That is why we conduct a pilot survey. So what are the various things we have discussed about collection of data? We have discussed what do we mean by data, variables, collection of data, sources of data, methods of collecting data, finally modes of collecting data. Kindly go through all these things. Try to answer your worksheet. If you have any doubts, feel free to talk to me and get it clarified. Alright children, thank you and may you all have a wonderful day today.